Thank you very much as well for letting me speak in English to you all. My apologies that I did not practice my Dutch well enough to present today. But you may see on some of the slides there is some attempt to do some Dutch translation as well. So my name is Thomas Knights. I'm based with Strava in London. I've been with the business for about 6 years now. And I'm here today to talk to you about community, about Strava, gamification, but also about Strava Metro and how you can turn all of these activities and gamification tools into actually creating a better, safer, more active society as well. So for those that aren't familiar with Strava, actually I'm in a show of hands, this is always dangerous. Has everyone in the room, who's heard of Strava here? Okay, so there's a decent kind of group in here, which is always exciting. I'm wondering, as we'll get to it, that Strava Metro is maybe something you will learn more about today as well. But Strava's mission is really to motivate the world to move. We're the app for active people, and as you'll learn today, cities, governments, communities can also leverage Strava to really make their places better and safer to move through. As you may have just seen as well through the quiz, we have a community of around 125 million people, and that's growing every single week as we start to see the network effect of the Strava community grow and grow. The majority of the activity that we see still happens in Northern Europe, which is really exciting. And if you look at the Strava heat map, you'll see that lots of activity takes place here in Benelux, and I think something like 6 million users now are in the region itself. And each one of these users represents a human-powered activity from running to walking to cycling, multiple different sport types on there. And before I kind of go into the presentation, hopefully I can share a small video which will tell you a little bit more about Strava and how we will motivate people to move. So with Strava, we really don't want to spend really any time on the app, or as little possible as time on the app itself. We would rather you were out there on the streets and on the trails, keeping motivated, keeping healthy, discovering new places to be active. And essentially we built that tool that community is the thing that powers the motivation. For every minute that you spend on Strava, we can attribute around 30 minutes of physical activity as well. So we've designed the platform to make sure it's, again, a motivator and not designed to draw you in to keep scrolling through the app. And millions of people will use the app itself by engaging with our beautiful maps. Perhaps some people are more motivated by their health-related data. We'll also start to see people, again, using it to find running clubs, to connect with community. And you'll find that community is the theme that runs through this presentation as well. In terms of how people will discover, we want you to discover new routes. I was in Amsterdam yesterday, looking for a place to go for a run. And again, through the Strava tool, the AI route building tool, I was able to leverage some of the photographs which would show me where I could move and inspire me to kind of look for a new workout place as well. I saw a big show of hands of those that were familiar with Strava. And of course, some of you may recognise Strava perhaps as just a cycling platform for people wearing Lycra, or people doing kind of marathon sprints and very, very kind of athletic activities. But actually, we have so many more sport types on the platform. And essentially, we want to be the connected centre of that connected fitness as well. So whether you're into handball, or electric bikes, or running, or trail walking, even pickleball or paddle, we want to see those activities on Strava. And we've expanded our growth, again, to much more of an international audience. We have a much bigger demographic audience. We've seen a huge boom, as we'll find out, in terms of Gen Z and a younger generation turning to fitness and health, especially since, of course, the events that happened during the pandemic years. We also know that there's a more diverse group as sports becomes more accessible and people are looking to be more active. And again, a broader sports mix as well. So again, we're not just a home for cycling, running and walking, we're a home for different sport types as well. And one of the secrets behind the success is making sure that we're the centre of the connected device. Many of you in this room might be wearing a watch. Perhaps everyone has access to a mobile phone. But again, my advice to people, I was talking to a group earlier upstairs about, how can you build community? Actually being the centre of the connected platform and just kind of positioning yourself as a platform is really, really important. So making yourself available to connect with devices. And what leads to, then, is brands will want to come and be on your platform because you have an audience as well. So again, Strava is very lucky that we have many different now sports brands which have come to us and they want to leverage gamification through some of the challenges that we offer. And gamification is obviously a big theme of today, and there's a little bit more to the presentation than just gamification. But brands will come to Strava and they will look to activate their community and make sure that people are active, and to give them an offering, which again will leverage some of their marketing budgets as well. Now, the different types of challenges we see on Strava could be the most minutes active, perhaps it's the longest distance, maybe it's a really tailored individual goal, your best effort. But essentially, we know that people are motivated by challenges because people like free stuff, people like badges, people like digital engagement. And again, Strava has a platform to offer that through. So in terms of the discovery behind that, as well, we have a gallery wall that you can discover and join these challenges. These are all free. We don't advertise on Strava itself, and anyone can join a challenge. And the way that we keep Strava in terms of being an ad-free platform is by engaging with these brands to create these challenges of movement. And again, it's a really great tool to keep people motivated. And we know that if we engage people at scale and motivate them and reward them for their activity, then of course they're going to be way more engaged. And if you think about traditional social media like Facebook, Instagram, X, we know that these have got great community building functions, but actually a lot of the sports and active community are on Strava. So we know that through the engagement and club content, that people can start to reach out and get people active. And in terms of building communities, we've got a huge range of running clubs. There's been a huge boom. And these are a great way to get people to meet in real life. It's a great way to get your brand out there. It's a great way to get people moving and excited about different kind of directions you may want to build an audience with as well. And again, we've seen in the world of streaming and gaming, there's huge audiences out there where we can actually host these athletes and gamers who can actually start to tell their story on Strava and hopefully motivate people to move even more. We know that there's a huge amount of professional cyclists that are on the platform, but we also start to see a lot of running influencers will post content onto the platform. And again, these creators will start to drive visibility and authenticity for your brands. And again, by joining challenges and tagging people in activities, we can feature any kind of goals that we're trying to achieve. Now, I thought I'd do a quick kind of Q&A on or a quick kind of overview of some of our biggest stats from last year. And you won't be surprised to know, but running in 2023, and it continues into 2024, is our biggest growing sport type. And running obviously is a lower barrier to entry than perhaps cycling, but it's our top sport on Strava, followed very closely by ride and walk, and then of course trail run. And we know, again, the rise of run clubs, you've probably seen on the internet and through different communities, it's a huge, huge growth area for people to keep active. And how do we kind of capture that audience through gamification? We also know what people are wearing. Again, what are the top shoes that people are wearing? What are the top bikes that people are riding? So again, there's all sorts of information we can start to gather for brands, for different activities you're looking to engage with. And we know, again, through this kind of top gear, and again, through some of the shoes that people are wearing, these insights, again, will let you really start to, drive that engagement and tell the story as well. I'll go to the next slide on here. We also know about the generational divides as well. The generational divide shows us that we're seeing Gen Z logging a lot more kind of faster runs. But we also know that boomers in the older age bracket are going further on the bicycle as well. So different audiences will be engaged by different types of gamification as well. So when creating challenges to keep people moving, yes, we can do it on distance and speed, but actually there's some really interesting ways you can start to actually explore the generational differences as well. But actually, if you really want to keep, like I say, people active when people are biking, the secret is to market to people with pets. So dogs and any sort of dog-related activity on Strava really does seem to actually drive the biggest amount of motivation. 76% of most of the Strava users will do a workout with their pet as well. So again, just when you kind of thought that motivation came from gamification online, it turns out just taking the dog for a walk or a run is actually one of the biggest sources of motivation for the community. And we know that people are motivated by just getting that workout done. It might be because they're reaching a challenge goal, maybe it's because they are looking to fit their activity in and their motivation. But obviously different groups face different challenges, and we know that safe infrastructure is one of the biggest kind of issues when it comes to people being active and working out as well. But again, I go back to this point around community, and we know again, and I was again talking to a group earlier, that the younger generation and Gen Z at the moment finding all of their engagement through connecting to other people, friends, family on Strava. And we know that they're the biggest contributor in terms of running clubs and this new form of social engagement as well. And we can see that trend continue. So every year we do this year in sports. I think the latest one will be out in a couple of months' time. And again, we expect to see that trend completely continue. So what is it behind all of this data, though, that we can see? Because, of course, we talk about community, we talk about gamification. Yes, people will get free badges and free access to new shoes or discounts on various stuff. But what about if we can actually give back in terms of some of the data? So, for those that aren't familiar, Strava Metro is our offering from a social impact point of view. So Strava Metro makes human-powered movement safe, accessible and efficient for everyone. So the primary purpose of Strava is to provide aggregated and de-identified data behind everyone's run, ride or walk activity. And again, we make that activity completely free, so planners, departments of transportation can make use of this whole host of activity that we can see. And again, those of you that might be familiar with the Strava heat map will see that there's a huge amount of activity that we can really unleash to help power communities and really start to kind of grow more people being active. And you'll notice, obviously, in the Benelux region, we have a huge active population as well. But what is it that we're trying to solve? Well, Strava Metro is trying to solve for the fact that you might not know how to engage and measure where people are being active in your community. So many of you, I'm sure, of course I'm talking to a Dutch audience, are very familiar with cycling and bicycle infrastructure, but we see a lot of these bicycle counters around cities. What they don't tell you is where people are moving after that. So Strava Metro is aiming to fill in the gaps of where people have ridden, or where people have gone on a run, or perhaps where people have gone on a walk. Why that's important is because we can then get government funding, we can get more investment for people to be active, and again we can encourage people then through challenges, through gamification, to use this infrastructure. So it's more than, like I say, it's giving back from a data point of view. And again, it's not background track, so this is contributed by the Strava community. And we work with governments, we work with academic researchers, we work with outdoor and trail organisations, and again, we work with consultancies who are helping to build all of these groups. And the reason why we can do this is because not everyone on Strava, as I said at the beginning, is doing Ironman or running a marathon or perhaps riding in the Tour de France. We know in London, for example, that 69% of the journeys that are logged by bicycle are actually commuting trips, so they're utility trips from day to day. In Amsterdam, there was nearly 40 million kilometres of cycling trips that were commutes, so utility trips from point A to point B. And again, we can measure the carbon impact of that in cities which are not like Amsterdam, where they don't have much infrastructure, perhaps where they're looking to get a more active population. And again, in Paris, we saw this huge increase in people being active on the run-up to the Olympic Games, and what that's resulted in is a huge amount of people now choosing to cycle and bike to work. Again, so much so that Paris is being compared as the new kind of, Amsterdam in terms of that evolution from motorised vehicles to bicycles. But again, we can also measure not just in terms of that overall data, we can also show where people are being active. So again, if you want to start to target infrastructure investment, we can also say from the heat map, what are the activity paths of people being active? Where are they being active, and how can we use that to inform planning, design, challenges, gamifying, and getting more people active? The tool that we designed with Strava Metro is incredibly easy to use for non-technical professionals. I was looking at the data when I was putting the presentation, but who can guess when the Amsterdam Marathon is as well? You can see a huge spike just at that time of year, I think, where people are logging a huge amount of distance as well. You'll also notice as well, we've got a huge number of people that will log their walks and hikes as well. This data that we're seeing here is just for the city region of Amsterdam, So it's not just running data, but again, we also see a really young population as well on the platform on that front. We can also show you, for example, where people are moving and obviously where those journeys are starting and finishing. So this is an origins and destination tool, which will allow you to understand what are the popular commuting hotspots, what are the popular running hotspots, where people are moving, and how can we start to kind of mirror that infrastructure, or how can we mirror that activity and get more people active. Again, perhaps the most obvious route from A to B isn't always the safest route. Many people here will know that sometimes if you're biking somewhere, certainly where there isn't very good infrastructure, sometimes it's better to go the long way around, which is the orange line here, versus the blue line, which is the most direct route as well. And we can even go down to a street level, and this goes back to the point of what Strava Metro is trying to solve for. This is just a park that I think I chose, I think it might have been Rotterdam as well, and you can see exactly the number of journeys that have taken place by day, by month, by year, and then also, like I say, how many people and trips were taking place on there. And this is really useful information for communities to build infrastructure and build sporting facilities. So it's not just about uploading your activity to win a badge, you're giving back to your community to improve it. And we take data really, really seriously. Of course, when you're thinking about location data and sharing your activity, you have to make sure that you're, A, protecting people's privacy zones, so we hide the start, finish locations of people's journeys, and that allows us to build that community and keep people engaged with Strava Metro and allows them to contribute to the data. We know that from our own consumer research that 55% of people are more likely to upload a journey when they learn about this community-based project. So a couple of case studies. Again, we can motivate people through, like I say, maybe it's a World Charity Day. So the UCI, for those that aren't familiar, is a large international cycling organisation. Their call to action was to get everyone on Strava to log a certain distance around the world. And again, we logged over 110 million miles in 1 month with nearly 500,000 participants. So people want to take part in these gamification and calls to action. And they use the platform to do that. So whether it's creating a challenge, whether it's creating a great newsletter, it's leveraging the Strava community to do that. We can also use things like carbon savings as well. So every time you upload an activity onto Strava, we'll also estimate if that had been a car journey, how would that have changed in terms of the emissions. Now again, it's not a perfect equation, but it's a way of getting people to start thinking about sustainable travel as well. And big events can be a huge catalyst for this. If you think about the Olympic Games, most recently, or an event of a kind of similar scale, the World Athletics Championships, they encourage people to ride a bicycle in the summer of 2022 and actually really get people to engage by looking at the benefits of active transportation. So not just celebrating the athletes on the field, but also getting people to take part in being active off the field. It might surprise you as well, but the Tour de France is also encouraging people to look at everyday cycling as well. So the Tour was looking to promote everyday cycling right up until the moment where they were creating something like 130 different loops that everyday riders could take part in. And it's a way of engaging the community at scale where you've got big inspirational events that people can kind of take part in. And all that leads to, like I say, is assessing the impact of infrastructure. It could be as simple as a curb. This is in the city of Frankfurt. They had a very, very small project, which I always like to show because it shows it doesn't have to be a huge, kind of 10-mile bike lane or bike path that's caused a huge, kind of made a huge roadworks. This was a simple project that was using the data to assess the impact on the before and after, making journeys safer and quicker and better. And again, we can do this at scale in big cities like Copenhagen. For those that have visited, they might be familiar with the cycle slangen, the cycle snake. It's a great piece of bicycle infrastructure, but again, it makes it faster to get around, and you can start to see the before and after impact of the journeys by looking at that Strava data. And the last two examples I thought I'd share with you as well are more around inspiring people through maps and mapping. In the UK, we have a data science campus where again they were looking at the Strava heat map to try and inspire people to move and how their activities can really make a difference. For those that are familiar, you might spot the Camino de Santiago on the bottom left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is the Burning Man Festival in California as well. So, you know, your activity really, really does count. And the last example I thought I'd share was really this campaign with the US restaurant chain Chipotle. I don't know if those are familiar with Chipotle, but again, they sponsored a handful of Strava segments outside of Chipotle restaurants in the US. And the message was really simple. Gamify your audience, run to Chipotle and finish the segment, and they'll give you free guacamole on your order, which is, you know, that's a great kind of call to action. People love this stuff. But the actual real sweet kicker was actually if you run it more times than anyone else, you'll actually get free Chipotle for the whole year. So again, would anyone want to have a guess on how many times the winner in Denver, Sam, ran down that road? I appreciate I didn't have a poll going here, but she ran it over 1,000 times to get free Chipotle for life. So if you build it and you do gamify it, people will start to engage with it. So thank you very much for listening. I'd love to take any questions afterwards if you'd like to learn more. And thank you for letting me speak today.